Hello dear children, welcome back to our class for the poem A Legend of the Northland. As you all know that the poem was written by whom? Phoebe Cary. And in this poem we have seen that this is a ballad where the poet just says the story of Saint Peter who visits the house of a baker. Okay? And also we see that this is a story which was just passed on from the Northland regarding what? Regarding a bird. So one day what happened? Saint Peter was walking around, or he started traveling from one place to another all throughout the world preaching the gospel of God. And one fine day he happened to reach in front of a cottage. And when he reached there, he was so tired, he was hungry, and he felt very weak and all. So he asked for a cake from many cakes that she baked. But now we see that when she was asked to give a cake for the man, she finds it very hard because all the cakes in her shelf was big enough. And she thought of giving a smaller one. Okay. And also we have seen that last class she started making small cake. But once it was baked out, it seems to be bigger than the ones in the shelf. So she was not ready to give. So anyhow, for giving to Saint Peter, she baked 3 cakes. But finally, she was not ready to keep any one of these cakes. She kept all the cakes in her shelf. She was very greedy about doing some sort of charity to someone. Let's see then what happened. Okay. Then, and he said, "You are far too selfish to dwell in human form, to have both food and shelter, and fire to keep you warm." So what happened? So as we have seen that Saint Peter, who was waiting for the cake, he felt so angered, irritated at the behavior of the lady. So what he did? Saint Peter, who was irritated by the attitude of the lady, who made him wait for a longer time for a cake. By the time the saint was so tired, he was hungry, and he can't control his anger. What he did? He cursed her for making him wait. What is the reason? Here it says that the saint said that she was too selfish to give one cake to satisfy the hunger of a man. She has got many cakes in her shelf. It was stored there. He asked only one of among these many cakes, but she was not ready. She thought that let me give a small one. She took small flour, then kneaded it. When it was baked, it became what? Big one. So likewise, she took much time, and the man who was standing there or waiting for the food was now feeling so tired because the entire day he hasn't taken any food. So finally, because of anger, Saint Peter said that no, this lady doesn't deserve to live as a human being. Why? Because human beings should show some sort of kindness towards other people. And you should have the sharing mentality. If you have to give one to the person who doesn't have. Okay, that is the policy. Isn't it? That's what Saint Peter was just preaching all about. To consider your neighbor as yourself. But now this lady was not ready to give one cake to a person who was starving. So Saint Peter said, no, she doesn't deserve to live as a human being. After all, she has got all fortunate things in life. She has enough food. She has got shelter, clothing, warmth, everything is here. But still then she was not ready to give up, one cake. She has become more selfish and greedy. She is self-centered. She was thinking only about herself. She was not ready to consider the mentality or the feelings, or she was not ready to understand the miseries faced by others in the society. So that's why Saint Peter said that no, she doesn't deserve to live as a human being. Okay? Then the next line says that now you shall build as the birds do, and shall yet get your scanty means very little, food by boring and boring and boring, all day in the hard, dry wood. So now Saint Peter was fed up, irritated, cursed the lady by telling that you don't deserve to be a human being. Now he cursed the lady by telling that let you become a bird. So what you have to do? You would build your nest by yourself, boring and boring and boring into the dry wood. What is that boring? Boring means digging. Okay? Just you have to dig. You have to work very hard in order to earn a day's meal. So, this lady, instead of giving one cake to Saint Peter, she made Saint Peter waited for a long time, and finally Saint Peter became so anchored at her, he cursed her to be like a bird who built her nest by boring in the wood. Boring means digging with the beak. Okay? Let you just dig the dry wood by your beak, and from there you will get very little food. Okay? Very little food. And that too after walking very hard the full day. Then only you will get what? A very little amount of food. Saint Peter caused the lady to be a bird just like this, to live by getting very little food. Okay? So, and now the next line. Then up she went through the chimney, never speaking a word, and out of the top flew a woodpecker, for she was changed to a bird. So, when Saint Peter uttered this word, without wasting a single moment of time, this lady flew, or she was just flying to the chimney of her house. And how? Like a bird. And what does the bird said here? The bird is the woodpecker, because woodpecker is the bird who just bore a dry wood, or a dry wood here means a tree. Okay, a dry tree. Then that too for what? That too for food. So she flew up to the chimney. Chimney is where the smoke just comes. Okay, so she flew up immediately without getting a chance to speak anything. That means this Saint Peter was so angry, and that he can't even control his emotion. So at the very instant when Saint Peter said likewise, this tall lady all of a sudden changed. She doesn't even got a time to apologize, to ask pardon for. Okay? Immediately she turned to be a bird. That to which bird? Woodpecker. Now you have seen that woodpecker is a bird who just dig on the trunks of what? The tree. Okay? For what? For food. Okay? Just using the beak, it just dig on the trunk of a tree. Okay? So that's it. Immediately. And then the bird flew to the chimney of the house. The baker lady changed to a woodpecker and flew away. So as soon as the saint cursed, the lady turned to be a bird, and she didn't get a chance to speak anything, and the bird flew to the chimney of the house. There we see, as she flew, it turned to a woodpecker. Okay, and flew away. Now says, she had a scarlet cap on her head, and that was left the same, but all the rest of her clothes were burned black as a coal in the flame. Now, as the bird moved, appearance of the bird was set here. You know that woodpecker is always having a red cap. Okay, the head seems to be like red. See how the woodpecker sits on a tree and just does the boring. It just digs the trunk of a tree. So here the wood of that too, the dry part, the outer layer of the tree. Okay, the wood is being digged with the beak of the woodpecker, and you can see the color of the head. What is the color of the head? It's red. And now it says that how this woodpecker got this red head. What is that? While this lady was baking cakes, or when the Saint Peter was cursing the lady, she was wearing what? She was wearing a red colored cap on her head when Saint Peter cursed her. Okay? And also she was wearing the clothes, and when he cursed, the red cap remained with the same color, and that seemed to be the head of the woodpecker. That's how woodpecker got what? Red cap on his head, or red color head. That was the red cap worn by the baker lady when Saint Peter cursed her. That remained the same in the head of the bird. The rest of the clothes got burned and turned black just as the color of the coal. That is, when Saint Peter cursed her, apart from the hat of the head, the rest of the clothes in her body got burned because of the power of the curse. it got burned and turned out to be which color? Black color. What is the color of the coal? Coal is also black. So when the cloths were burnt, the body color of the bird become what? Black. That is the color of the dress that happened after burning, the color of the coal. This is how woodpecker got red and black color in the body. So this is the story of how woodpecker was born or formed. Okay. So actually this is the reason why the poetess at first said that this is only a story. She didn't believe, because you know that this is not the real story. But whenever what happened, people says this. Here we see that, and every country schoolboy has seen her in the wood where she lives in the trees till this very day, boring and boring for food. So now it says that, now the legend goes like this. Legend means what? The story. The story goes like this. Whenever the people see a woodpecker, elders used to tell the story towards the children. Okay, says that, there is a story behind this woodpecker. How woodpecker is formed? There was one lady who baked cakes. When Saint Peter came to the house of this lady was not ready to give any what is that? Cake. Saint Peter cursed the lady. So when the lady was cursed, the lady was wearing a red cap on her head. That is the red cap that is seen in the head of the woodpecker. And all her clothes got burned with the curse, and that turned to be the color of the coal. That's how the wings and the feathers of the woodpecker got what color? Black color. Okay, this story was said to all the children whenever the adults or whenever the elder people sees a woodpecker. They used to pass on this story. Okay, all the people used to tell the legend of a woodpecker from there to the children, and it passes from one place to another. This is the legend of the woodpecker. Okay. So I think you understood the poem and the story of the woodpecker, how woodpecker was formed, the legend of woodpecker. Okay, this is only a cooked up story. Okay, that's why the poetess says that I don't believe. So let's see what are the literary devices or poetic devices that comes in the poem. First one is rhyme scheme, then alliteration, repetition, enjambment, and simile. Okay, these are the 5 important literary devices that you can see in the poem, Legend of the Northland. So one by one we can just see. Okay, now first of all talking about the rhyming scheme. What is the rhyming scheme? All throughout the poem we can see the same rhyming scheme. What is that? She took a tiny scrap of a dough and rolled it flat and baked it thin as a wafer. But she couldn't part with that. See? Dough, A. Then the first and second doesn't rhyme similar. So we can give A. Then flat, that. Flat, that. B. The second and the fourth line rhymes similar. So that's why A, B, C, B. B, second and fourth line rhymes similar. So that is the rhyming scheme. First and third rhymes different. From first line rhymes different from B. Then second lines rhyme different from the third line. And third line differ from fourth line. But second and fourth line rhymes C. Flat, that. So what is the rhyming scheme? A, B, C, B. A, B, C, B. How do you say? A, B, C, B. Flat, that. Rhyme C. Okay, so that is the first literary device. Then coming to the second is alliteration. What is alliteration? Already we have studied this alliteration. Alliteration is repetition of speech or consonant sound. Repetition means what? Repeating the same speech sound. So apart from this stanza 1 and 2, there are alliterations in other stanzas also. So you have to find it out, the alliteration that comes in the other stanza. Okay. So here in stanza 1, the sound, consonant sound the. What is it? That, they, them, the. The sound the is a speech sound apart from the vowel sound. So that same sound is repeated in one single line in the words that, they, them. I have put it in green color. Okay. So which sound is repeated here? The, that, they, them. In stanza 2, here we see that the first line, the sledges wear its nose. Sledges, Sledges where it snows. So is repeated. Sledges, snow. So. Then the second line, the children look like. Look like. The sound L is repeated. And the third line, in the funny fairy clothes. Fur. The sound fur is repeated. Okay. Funny fairy, fur. So that is alliteration. What is alliteration? Repetition of speech sound or consonant sounds. Okay, so you have to find whether there are other alliterations in the other stanzas. Okay, then the next one is repetition. What is repetition? Repeating a word in a same line or repeating a sentence in 2 lines here in a poem. So here what is repetition? In stanza 1, you know that the poem starts with away in Northland. So the word away is repeated twice in stanza 1. Away in Northland. So what is the poetic device there? Repetition. Then stanza 9, you can see rolled it flat. Okay. So which word is repeated there? Rolled. Which word? Rolled is repeated. Then the next word is in stanza 13 and 16, you can see that the bird just went boring for food. Which word is repeated there? Boring. So as a word is repeated, the poetic device is repetition. If a sound is repeated, that is alliteration. Okay. So you have to understand the difference between alliteration and repetition. Okay. So I hope repetition is also clear to you. Okay. Don't get messed up with alliteration and repetition. Alliteration is repetition of speech sound. The likewise. When a word is repeated, that is repetition. Okay. Then coming to the next one is enjambment. We have learned this enjambment in many poems. That is lines of poetry from one to next without using a kind of punctuation to indicate a stop. That means one line continues with the other without a pause. Continuation of line 3 to line 4. Okay. So in between there won't be any punctuation marks. See here, and yet you may learn a lesson if I tell the tale to you. After first line or this line, there is no punctuation, and directly it is the continuation of the second line, isn't it? The last line is the continuation of the first line without a pause, without a punctuation mark, without a comma, without a full stop. So in these cases, when one line continues to other, that is enjambment, without a punctuation. Here also, where they harness the swift Scanty to the sledges when it snows. Here, one line is without a punctuation continued to the next line. And also here, and the children look like bear's cub in their funny furry clothes. Isn't it? Second line is the continuation of the first without any punctuation mark. So that's why it's enjambment. Continuity from one line to another is denoted by the poetic device enjambment. Okay. Next one is simile. What is simile? Simile is comparing one thing to other using like or as. Isn't it? The clothes of the children in the Northland is compared to what? Or the children are compared to the bear cubs. Why? Because they are wearing a fur coat just like the fur of a bear. That's why the children look like bear's cub. The children are compared to whom? Compared to bear's cub, the young one of a bear, because of their attire or dress. They are wearing fur coats. Fur coats means coats prepared with the skin of animals to protect them from where? To protect them from cold winter season. Okay. So here the children are compared to the young ones of a bear. So what is the poetic device? Simile. The children look like. Here the word like is used here to compare the children with whom? The bear's cub. Then the next one that you can see this, baked in thin as a waffle. You know that the third time when the lady took a scrap of flour to make the cake, she just rolled it, isn't it? Rolled it thin like a what? Like a wafer. What is wafer? You can see the picture of wafer here. Okay, wafer is very thin. So likewise, she rolled to make a very small cake. So here the cake is compared to wafer with the size. Okay, actually when it was baked, what is it? It becomes so huge. But she liked to get it baked thin as a wafer. She wanted to make a cake thin like that of a waffle. So here cake is compared to a waffle. Okay, that is a comparison. In the next line, you can see that the last part, clothes were burned black as a coal. When Saint Peter cursed the lady, her red cap remained the same, but her cloth was said to be burned, and it took the color of what? Coal. What is the color of coal? Black. Okay. So here the color of the burned clothes is compared to that of a coal. What is the color? Black. Instead of saying black, here it says that clothes were burned black as a coal. To say that the bird has got a black feather. When Saint Peter cursed the lady, only her cap remained the same and the rest of the clothes were burned black as a coal. Okay. So here the color of the burned clothes is compared to that of a coal. This is coal, the remains of a burned wood. Okay, so that's all for today's class. I hope you understood the poetic devices, the rhyming scheme A, B, C, B, then alliteration, then enjambment, then repetition, then simile. Okay, so go through the text once again and study the lesson well. Okay, that's all for today's class. Have a great day. Thank you. God bless you.